Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare, Hare
Hare Ram,
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Ram,
Ram,
Ram
Ram
Ram,
Ram,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please join us for Jai Radha Madhav prayers. Jai Radha Madhava
Kunj Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girdharidhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girdharidhari, Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana, Yamunati Ravanachari, Yamunati Ravanachari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare कृष्णा डियर डिवोटीज, आप सबका स्वागत है, आप सबका अभिनंदन है। हरे कृष्णा देवी।
हरे कृष्णा डियर व्यूअर्स, वेलकम एवरीवन। आप सभी का अभिनंदन है। आज जीव तत्व प्रभु जी हमें श्रीमद् भागवतम से इम्पोर्टेंट लेसन्स शेयर करेंगे। हम सभी के मन में बहुत फियर और एंग्जाइटी होती है बहुत सी बार रिगार्डिंग व्हाट एवर एंड इज गोइंग टू बी लाइक, इस लाइफ का एंड कैसे होगा, और फिर हम फॉरगेटफुलनेस में जीते हैं। वी डोंट वांट टू थिंक अबाउट इट। लेकिन हमारे जो स्क्रिप्चर्स हैं, हमारे शास्त्रों में बहुत ही ब्यूटीफुल टीचिंग्स हैं जिसकी हेल्प से हम थोड़ा अपना फियर दूर कर सकते हैं, एंग्जाइटी दूर कर सकते हैं, भगवान की शरण ले सकते हैं, इन शास्त्रों की शरण ले सकते हैं और अपनी लाइफ के फाइनल एग्जाम के लिए प्रिपेयर्ड हो सकते हैं। और इसके लिए हमें चाहिए अ मूड ऑफ सिंसेरिटी, अ मूड ऑफ सरेंडर टू भगवान। पर इतनी श्रद्धा या फेथ भी डेवलप करने के लिए हमें टीचिंग्स की हेल्प लेनी पड़ेगी। तो काइंडली जीव तत्व प्रभु जी पूरे जो वास्ट चैप्टर्स और पर्पट्स हैं उसका एसेंस हमें इस एक क्लास में प्रोवाइड करते हैं। तो इस क्लास के बाद अगर आपके कुछ भी प्रश्न हैं, सवाल हैं, उनको क्लास एंड होने पर ही लिखिए, नहीं तो वो मिस हो जाएंगे। एंड जीव तत्व प्रभु जी विल काइंडली आंसर योर क्वेश्चंस ऑल्सो। एंड मीनवाइल ड्यूरिंग द क्लास कुछ जो क्वेश्चंस पूछे जाएंगे आप एक्टिवली उसमें पार्टिसिपेट कर सकते हैं। आई विल बी कीपिंग एन आई जो कमेंट्स हैं एंड आई विल कन्वे द मैसेजेस टू प्रभु जी। सो वेलकम अगेन। एंड जो भी न्यू व्यूअर्स हैं आप सब अपनी लोकेशंस भी मेंशन कर सकते हैं ग्रीटिंग्स के साथ, राइट प्रभु जी?
हरे कृष्णा।
So please go ahead and continue with the invocation prayers and start the class. Thank you, Prabhuji. Let me put on microphone.
For the invocation prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiryet. Shavatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shamana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Hya Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suhasatam Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatir Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3. Again, Lord Kapil is glorifying devotional service and also giving us various instructions so that we can purify our life, we can sublime, and spiritualize our existence. And now in this chapter, the title of the chapter is Description by Lord Kapila of Adverse Fruitive Activities. So again, pratikul, adverse. So again, this is what has been described. So please join us. Hare Krishna.
Also explain to them who is Lord Kapil.
Lord Kapil, the son of Devahuti and Kardama Muni, he is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So again, a Vishnu Tattva. So again, they are all considered one. So he is also referred to as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. So please join us in the recitation of the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 30. Devi, can you please place the link so that people can recite with us?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. The title is Description of Lord Kapil of Adverse Fruitive Activities. And we'll be covering today what happens when one does not engage in bhakti, in devotional service, before death comes, and what is the timely solution, and when one should employ that timely solution. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
So please, thank you. So we have shared the link in the comments, so you can recite with us. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 30, Verse 1. Kapil uvacha tasya jano nunam nayam vedor vikramam kalyamano api balino vayar iva ghanavalihi. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. The personality of God had said, As a mass of cloud does not know the powerful influence of the wind, a person engaged in material consciousness does not know the powerful strength of the time factor by which he is carried. Hare Krishna. And there's beautiful teachings in this chapter. So please join us for Guru Pranati. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshitarine Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tadaham Vande Shri Gurum Deenataranam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So in this chapter, amazing lessons are given. And yes, sometimes people, they want to know immediate, gratification. So today, this session will be covering for 3 different categories of people. There are people who just want to get the whole formula in first 2 minutes. Then there are people who are ready to give up to 5 minutes, right? And then there are people who want to really take a deeper dive. So we'll be looking at those 3 phases. So सबसे पहले तो let's look at the summary of this chapter. First is, in the first 5 verses, Lord Kapil, he's revealing to his mother Devahuti the, time factor, how influential time factor is. And as this verse says, just like the wind carries the cloud, cloud cannot be on its own, it's actually carried by the wind. And the wind can move the cloud anywhere it feels like. So, just similarly, the time factor can carry away a deluded person, and they would not know when they have lost their wonderful opportunity. This human life is very rare. Then the second aspect is in the next 14 verses, where it's described that how a householder, we married people, we live in a house, with family and all. So, कैसे वो व्याकुल हो जाता है, and he is completely bewildered. He forgets about this life and everything which is temporary in this world. He thinks, or she thinks, again, all householder members, they think that as if it is permanent and everything is going on very nicely, and it should, even until the old age and up to the point of death, they are thinking in this manner. So this is another delusion. They are thinking, while Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Dukkhalayam ashashvatam, that this place, this material world, is a place of misery and it is temporary. But people, they think everything is permanent. So what mantra do they follow? आज का काम कल करना, कल का करना परसों, इतनी जल्दी क्या है भैया, अब जीना है बरसों. That is the formula they follow, right? Or while devotees, we understand the importance of, being proactive, not reactive, proactive, which is, काल करे सो आज करे सो अब, पल में प्रलय होएगी, बहुरी करेगा कब. So, again, जो फ्यूचर का काम है वो let's take them today, और जो आज काम करना है let's do it now. And what's the most important work we have to do? Chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So all of those who know the meaning of the mantra, please share so that others can also read. And now, yes, in the comments. And now the third part in this particular chapter is on the point of death as a person, जिसने जो 14 verse में describe किया है, thinking everything is permanent, what happens after death to this bewildered soul, right? And how this soul is punished for the sinful activities, the sinful, acts that they have, the impious acts they had performed when they were living in a family life. So again, and why were they doing this? In an attempt to enjoy, right? So that's the gist of this chapter. First 5 verses tells us about the influence of time factor, how a time factor can carry away a bewildered human being. So the second 14 verses, 6 through 19, they tell us about how this bewildered person in a householder's life, thinking everything to be permanent and carrying on all kind of activities just with the mood of enjoying. And then the third is, after death, the same bewildered soul, who did not take to the shelter of the Godhead, rather engage in his, sense enjoyment and enjoying the fruits of his activities, is punished for all those sinful acts that he performed. And he, again, after many, many births, 8.4 million species, he gets an opportunity. So that was, what happens to one who does not engage in bhakti. So this is for those people who don't engage in bhakti. And that engagement should be, when should that engagement be? Should be immediately taken up now. Now is the best time, right? Now is the present moment. Present moment means it's a gift. Present means a gift. So we should understand that this gift should not be wasted. Use it or lose it. Simple formula. Maya follows just one. She gives us an opportunity. If we don't take away the opportunity, then it's all gone. Time and tide wait for no one. So again, we have to understand. Just like a tide comes in a specific time, this is our opportunity. We have received this human form of body. We have this rare opportunity to engage in bhakti. If we don't engage in bhakti, then let's see what happens to such a soul. How that soul suffers in this material world, currently as well as after this birth. So again, there are many wonderful, wonderful stories we can hear. So, and then after death, that suffering, it just doesn't end there, because it creates impressions, or those impressions are known as samskaras. And these impressions keep us rolling in life after life after life. And only, a fortunate soul gets an opportunity to engage in bhakti. Brahmar bhavite kaun bhagyavan jiva Guru Krishna prasade paya bhakti lata bija. Brahmar bhavite, wandering in this material universe, it's like a Ferris wheel. Srila Prabhupada used to say that, in this Hawaii Jhula jo hota hai, jisme kabhi kabhi upar jate hain log, so which is like going to the heavenly planets. Then they come to the earthly planets in the middle stage. Then they fall down to animal, even worse, insects and all those species of life. So again, we're constantly wandering, Brahmite, wandering souls. Kaun bhagyavan, but if one is fortunate, Guru Krishna, by the mercy of Lord Krishna, who's in our heart as Paramatma, as Super Soul, उनकी कृपा से हमको साक्षात गुरु मिलते हैं, bona fide spiritual master. We have an opportunity to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, so we should immediately surrender to a bona fide spiritual master. And by the prasad, by the mercy, prasad also means mercy, by bhakti lata bija, by the mercy of the bona fide spiritual master, we get the bhakti lata bij, the seed of devotion. And Acharyas explain, it is not that something that you are getting new, it is actually, the devotion is already in our heart, that the spark is there, it needs to be kindled and then become more strong. Just like a little fire, when provided a lot of oxygen, immediately becomes big, right? Strong. We sometimes say put more ghee in the lamp so that it has that fuel. So we get that fuel, we get that energy, and we, a spiritual being, are awakened, right? Because in darkness, what can you see? We have 4 kind of defects. There is propensity to cheat, propensity to be delusioned, we have imperfect senses, and human is err. So again, we have propensity to make mistakes. So these 4 defects are the, when we have this material body, these constantly influence us. And so we have to come to that perfect stage. And how do you come to the perfect stage? By taking to bhakti, by taking to devotional service. So that is the benefit. So I'm actually telling you the solution before itself. Like, we have this big long story that's coming up afterwards. So again, we covered the 2 minutes and 5 minutes. Now let's dive into the bigger deal of things. In this material world, there is a common religiosity is one of the factor. And when we look at Vedas, Vedas talk about dharmat kam moksha. And one of my friend, he says, at work, when I was working with him, this is long back, about 20, 25 years back. So, he was very religious person, very pious person. He says, मैं तो धर्म अर्थ काम मोक्ष every day follow करता हूँ. I was surprised. How could somebody follow it every day? So he says, when I get up in the morning, right, dharma stands for religion. So मैं सुबह नहा के पूजा करता हूँ भगवान की, ठीक है, पूजा करता हूँ. उसके बाद वो बोलता है कि he's telling me, he's sharing, then I come to work. That's economic development. I'm working, so that I get some money. So that's earth. And then since I know that I have received similar funds in the past, I'll get this money for the future. So the one I'm using in the past, I'm taking my family out for movie, for dinner at restaurants. We are going out to bowling alley and all those kind of frivolous, activities that the family likes to enjoy. So that's calm, right? Having enjoyment. And then at night I go to sleep, and that moksha. At night I sleep. Then I say, so what is the purpose? That liberation means it's eternity. Do you sleep for eternity? He's like, no, I have to get up again because my dharma, काम, मोक्ष जो है, इसका जो cycle है, 24 hours चलता रहता है. So again, sometimes people, they concoct. This is called mental speculation. So there are two kind of speculators. One is mental speculators who don't really study the Shastras. They just think that this is so and that is so, right? So this is mental speculators. And then the philosophical speculators are the Gyan Yogis. They know the philosophy, so they study the philosophy and then they say, oh, Maya is very dangerous, I'm not going to act. Well, that is not a karma. Not acting for sense gratification, in fruitive activities is, not a karma. Lord Krishna says, there is karma, vikarma and akarma. Karma is pious activities, vikarma is sinful activities, impious activities. And akarma is engagement in devotional service. So, Jnanis, they just want to merge into Brahman. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says that such people, they are great offenders at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Because what they want to do? They want to become God. And Srila Prabhupada used to say, when he would hear this, he would say, why do you want to become God when you can become godly? Right? Just like Yashoda Mai. With her love, she binds Lord Krishna. So this is the love, of Yashoda Mai. And Arjun, with his love, with his devotion, Lord Krishna wants to serve him as Parth Sarthi, right? That's another name of Krishna. That one who was the charioteer of Partha, the son of Pritha. And who is this son? This is Arjun. So again, why do you want to become God when you can become godly and even greater? So we can all become godly. And how do you become godly? Again, cleanliness is next to godliness. So we need to just not cleanse ourselves outside by taking bath, but also inside. Cheto darpana majam. We have to remove the dust on the mirror of our heart, our cheta, our consciousness. And that can only be done by one process, and that is the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we chant very clearly, we want to hear attentively, and the Lord, He enters our heart as Nam Prabhu, and He cleanses our heart completely of all these impressions, the samskars that have been there for millions and millions of births, so that we don't have to suffer. So again, what happens to one who does not take to bhakti? Now that is a very important topic, because till now, Lord Kapila, he had been glorifying bhakti, devotional service, execution of devotional service. What is the destination one attains from devotional engagement in devotional service? But then people say, okay, this is fine. Maybe I have a better destination if I do work for sense gratification. And sometimes people, they want to put, 1 feet in bhakti and 1 feet in material life, right? And they say, well, this way I have both sources, I'll be safe. They don't know that actually the two boats are going in opposite direction. And think of yourself. Think that you have placed 1 foot, in one boat, and let's call this boat as Bhakti, devotion service, and another boat is called like fruitive activities, materialistic boat. And then both the boats, if somebody rows them in opposite direction, what will happen to you? Right? You will have a split gymnastics going on. So again, you have to be very, very careful. And this, in this chapter, it is very nicely described that time devours all things. So Lord Krishna says, time I am the destroyer of all things. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna reveals this to Arjuna. In this chapter, it is revealed. Now, one of the interesting thing is, so there is this story, right? The first verse itself, Lord Kapila is referring to that the cloud is carried by wind. So there is actually a beautiful story that Srila Prabhupada used to share. That once wind and cloud, they were having this conversation. Wind said, I'm more powerful than you. I can carry you wherever I feel like. The cloud says, I don't think so. So the wind says, okay, you see that man climbing up the hill, whoever can take off the coat of that man, is more powerful. So now, cloud agrees, again. So the wind says, okay, I'll go first, and tries to blow very hard. So the wind is blowing very hard, and as soon as the man, he sees that there is strong wind, he's holding on to his coat more, enthusiastic, more determined not to let go of that coat. After some time, the wind is tired. It says, okay, well, if I cannot remove that, how can the cloud remove that? So he says, okay, now it's your turn. Try doing that. So cloud, knowing that it doesn't have any power, rather even to move, it normally takes help of wind. So it simply dissipates so that the sun can shine brightly. And when the sun shines brightly, it becomes warm. And the man says, well, the sun is out, it's really warm. What am I doing wearing the coat? He takes off the coat. Now, how was the cloud able to show this higher power? Well, the cloud is easily carried by the wind, but it was able to take that higher power is because it took shelter of higher power. The sun is more powerful than wind or cloud. So again, it took that. So devotees, yes, we have material bodies, yet at the same time we take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So again, when we take shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, we are under his shelter, so Maya cannot disturb us. And Lord Krishna reveals in Bhagavad Gita that, excuse me, sometimes you lose your voice after 4 or 5 hours of chanting. Excuse me, Hare Krishna. So here, Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he reveals that when one has taken shelter, right, the person becomes powerful. And at the same time, he is saying that this material energy of mine, the Ashtada, which is like the 5 gross elements, earth, water, fire, air and ether, and then mind, intelligence and false ego. So these are the 8 elements, is lower energy, and above that is a higher energy, his marginal potency, Tatashta Shakti. And these are the living entities who are wandering in this world in various material bodies. So now somebody will say, if we are higher energy, how come we are overtaken by Maya? Because Maya, even though she is doing a thankless service, she is actually taking shelter of the Lordship. Devi he isha gudamai mama maya duratya ma me viye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. So Lord Krishna is revealing about the material energy, Maya, that gudamai, it has 3 modes of material nature. So what are the 3 gunas jo hai? वो क्या है? आप please share करिए comments में. I'll also share. So first is Sattva Guna, which is mode of goodness. Then second is Raja Guna, mode of passion. Third is Tamo Guna, mode of ignorance. Mama Maya Duratya is very difficult to cross over. So this material energy is also sometimes referred to, or this Bhautik Jagat is referred to as a Sagar, Bhav Sagar, right? It is a great ocean. Mame viye prapadyante. But those who surrender unto me, mayam etam taranti, they can easily cross over this material ocean. So this is like the secret, right? Lord Kapil is discussing and describing what happens to one who does not take to bhakti. But one who takes to bhakti can easily cross over, because this whole ocean becomes the size of a calf's hoof print, right? Samashita ye pada pallava plavam mat padam pune yasho murari bhavam buddhi vatsa padam padam yata vipadam natesham. Samashita ye pada pallava plavam. So when we take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lordship, his feet are just like the lotus, but they are the perfect boat, right? And he is the supreme proprietor of all, material and spiritual universes. Bhavam buddhir vatsa padam. So again, when we take shelter at his lotus feet, so this great ocean reduces to the size of vatsapadam, which is the calf's hoof print. And we can easily cross over it, and then we don't have to stay in this material world where there is padam yat vipadam natesham, where there is danger at every step. So here we understand that there is danger of every step. Now Lord Kapil in this chapter is going to tell us what are the dangers in this material world. So in this material world, people who are engaged in fruitive activities, right, they are not understanding the impermanent nature of this world. So they are constantly thinking everything is permanent and I and mine. As Prahlad Maharaj says, aham mameti. And they are engaged in this puna purvit charvit charvanam. So again they are chewing the chewed. And there is a beautiful song, we see in Vaishnava songbook, which reveals this attitude, right? As materialists, means like people with material consciousness seeking to enjoy this material world, acquiring more for their own pleasure and trying to think that they are acquiring it for their loved ones around them. So again, ism is another factor that Srila Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Devotion is revealing, that people first say, extension of our body, they're thinking that I am this body. Then the further extension that I am this body is, okay, these are my siblings, this is my family. Next is, this is my society, this is my nation, right? This is my community. All these are isms which actually cause someone to fall down further and further and get more caught in daldal, right? The quicksand of this material world. So I will explain to you what has been described here with a song by the Acharyas. Bhajahu re mana Shinanda Nandana Abhaya Charana Ravindare. Bhajahu re mana Shinanda Nandana Abhaya Charana Ravindare. Dulabha manava janama satsange, dulabha manava janama satsange, bhajahu re pada sindhure, bhavahu re. Wait. Bhaja. Sorry about that. My mind is a little getting confused. Bhajahu re mana Shinanda Nandana Bhaya Charana Ravindare. Dulabha manava janama satsange tarahu re bhava sindhure. So here the singer is revealing that we should take to the chanting of the holy name of Shri Nanda Nandana, the son of Nanda Maharaj, right? Who actually gives us abhay, who gives us fearlessness, because in his shelter, when we take to his lotus feet, shelter of his lotus feet, then we become fearless, right? And this dullabha manava janama satsanga. So again, this human birth is very rare. So we should engage, we should seek out satsang, right? And by engaging in satsang, the congregation chanting of the holy name, we can cross over this ocean of nascence. शीत आतप बात बरीशन ए दिन जामिनी जागिरे विफल सेविनु कृपण दुर्जना चपल सुख लाभ लागिरे. And that in this world, when we are engaged both day and night, we remain sleepless. So again, in material consciousness, a person is suffering the pains of heat and cold, shita atapa, vata varishana, the wind and the rain. And so for fraction of flickering happiness, right, I have uselessly served wicked and miserly men. So a person with material consciousness, is working like an ass, like Muda, right? So again, why? Because they are serving wicked men who are seeking the same kind of goals, and they are miserly, they are not giving them proper remuneration. Yet at the same time, a person trying to sustain themselves and enjoy in this material world is engaged like an ass. Srila Prabhupada used to give an example, just like a donkey, is serving a washerman and is thinking, carrying this heavy load, when the washerman takes it for washing, thinking that the washerman will provide it some grass, that, and will be very, nicely treating him, and not realizing that actually grass is available anywhere very easily. Yet at the same time, and as a donkey is engaged in this, carrying this heavy load. So similarly, people are carrying up this heavy load, while it is very easy to take to the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and completely rely on Him for sustenance. And sometimes people do challenge and they say, wait a minute, if everyone becomes a devotee, then who will do the work? Well, devotee doesn't mean you become idle. Devotees work 10 times more than a normal person, but they work for the pleasure of Lord Shri Radha Krishna, the Lordships. So they engage proactively in activities which are dovetailed in the service of the Lordship. And Lord sustains the devotees, again, automatically. Ye dhana yavana putra parijana ite kiyache parati tire kamal dal jala jivan atal mala bhajaun hari padani tire. Ye dhana yavana putra parijana. So again, what is the assurance of real happiness, right? What assurance is there? Because this dhana, this, whatever you have collected as wealth, yavana, the youth that you have, putra parijana, your sons, daughters, and your family members, and your, connections, your friends, what is the assurance that they will provide you real happiness? This life is tottering like a drop on a lotus leaf. And so, we should again follow the niti. What is? Bhajahu Hari Pada Nitire. So we should take to the shelter of the Lordship. We should worship the divine feet of Lord Shri Krishna. Shravana Kirtana Smaran Vandana Pada Sevana Dasyare Pujana Sakhi Jana Atmanivedana Govinda Dasa Bhilashre. So of course the writer, the singer Govindas, he is singing that it is the desire and great longing of Govindas to engage himself in the 9 processes of bhakti. Shravana Kirtana Pujana Sakhi Jana Shravan Kirtan Smarana Vandana. So again, Shravan is hearing, Kirtan is chanting, Smarana, remembering, and Vandana by singing prayers, Pada Sevana was serving the lotus feet, and Dasya, right, by being a servant, by being a Das of the Lordship, and a Pujana, by doing worship, Archa Vigraha, ki puja kada, worshipping, and then Sakhi Jana, and being friendly to the Lordship, just like a friend takes care of another friend. Similarly, taking care of the Lordship in a favorable mood as Lord desires. Atma Nivedana and surrendering everything, mind, body and words, all activities dovetail through these, to please Lord Shri Krishna. Govinda Das Abhilashare. This is the desire of a devotee, because that is the true shelter. That is where the true happiness is. So again, in this song, it is revealed what is the assurance. There is no assurance when for one who is engaged in this material world. Rather, they are constantly in this Ferris wheel, wandering in this material universe, suffering. And what kind of happiness? Lord Kapila reveals the kind of happiness, a person seeking material enjoyment they experience. The happiness for them is, can't see. The happiness for them is absence of distress. So in Acharyas give this example. Again, this occurs in many scriptures as well. That actually a person, when he's tortured, their head is put in under water. So they are trying to hold their breath, but they can't hold the breath. The water is going in. It's very difficult. And right before the life is going to escape from the body, they are pulled out, from the water. So that is where they get the grasp of air. And before they can even understand something, they are again put in water. So similarly, हम लोग इस भव सागर में गोते खा रहे हैं, right? We are constantly being splashed from all directions by waves in this material world. So when we are hit by these waves, we hardly have any shelter. And there is constant distress. But for a moment, when the waves calm down, we feel, oh, this is very nice, before the next wave comes and hits us. So that is the definition of happiness. And in this effort, one is very much trying to swim in this Bhav Sagar, which is again another bewilderment. Srila Prabhupada, he used to give this example to Narayani Mataji. He asked this question, that when you are in an ocean, right, what would you do? The waves are hitting from all directions. Would you tell the waves not to hit you? You just don't want to be hit by the waves. No, that's the nature of ocean. There are waves in the ocean and they will keep hitting you one after another. So that is this material world. You cannot change the external conditions, but yes, you can change yourself. So an expert swimmer understands that he has to somehow, ride on the waves. He has to get on those waves and actually use the waves in getting to the shore. So that is a sign of an expert swimmer. And that's what a devotee is. And rather, devotees, when they take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, and his feet are Padapallavam, they are as soft as lotus buds, and they are the perfect boat. So the devotees, they take shelter, so they get onto a boat. And the boat is like a cruise line, right? So think of it. You're on a cruise ship. There can be heavy waves down there, in the ocean, but the cruise line is, going on with a festival, constant festival going on, which is congregational chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So again, so aham mameti, so this, even relying on one's relative is not a solution. And this material nature is so powerful because, Maya, she is serving the Supreme Lord, making sure that anyone who is not a devotee of the Lord stays in this material world and suffers. Right? And there is a beautiful story that comes, that Lord Brahma, once he becomes upset from Indra, because Indra, he became very, proud of his position and that all these people were serving him. So he was not giving proper respect to the sages and others. So he got cursed to become a pig. So after some time, when Lord Brahma cursed Indra, once again Indra was cursed to become a pig, Lord Brahma, he felt compassion. No, maybe I was too harsh. Let me go and ask him to come back. So he went and he saw that Indra with his many other pig wives, females and small piglets, he was in a pigsty, means in a very bad, abominable condition. And you know what pigs eat, right? Abominable things. So he said, why don't you come back? And then Indra, who was in the pig's body, He said, no, 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 I'm very comfortable here. I have all my wives, I have all my kids. I'm really enjoying here. So Lord Brahma was shocked to hear this, because we all understand that a pig's life is horrible. It eats abominable things. It has very bad conditions. It survives in its surroundings are really abominable. Yet at the same time, the same condition, the hellish condition, this pig in the form of pig, Indra was feeling that he is enjoying. In a miserable state, he was feeling he is enjoying. That is what happens when people in material consciousness are. And that's why the same living entity in the body of a dog behaves like a dog, in the body of a pig behaves like a pig, in the body of a bird behaves like a bird, and the body of a human being has that extra intelligence which comes with great responsibility. So should not behave like animals and should take to bhakti. If one does not take to bhakti, does not take to devotional service, does not surrender to the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, does not chant the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Then we hear that Yamraj, he gives instructions to his servants, the Yamadutas, the messenger of Yamraj, the messenger of the death of Lord of Death, that bring me these people who don't chant the holy name, who don't take to the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is what happens, that a person thinking everything is permanent becomes old, because there are four factors in this material world. Janam, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukha, Doshanudarshanam. Birth, death, old age and disease, these are the four kinds of miseries that we see in this material world. No matter, doesn't matter which particular kind of material body you have, all material bodies go through these four phases. So when a man, in a house trying to maintain his family, but he becomes old over a period of time and cannot serve them, then how do they behave? जैसे एक बूढ़ा, बैल हो जाता है ना, जो कोई काम नहीं कर सकता कुछ. Nobody likes an old man who cannot serve. So they mistreat, the family members neglect him. That is also mistreatment. If you are neglected by someone, you understand how bad it feels in your heart. So that is also mistreatment, that they are neglected by their own family members for whom they were working so much. And they were engaging on all kind of fruitive activities. By hook or crook, they were trying to make sure that the family members are happy. But these same family members, when not being fed, they neglect and they make the condition very miserable for this man or even a woman. So again, all kind of living entities experience that, so we also experience it. And a person who is engaged in material life all their life, when they are near the point of death, all these family members are gathered around them and they are saying so many things. We love you, we do this, we do that. And he wants to reciprocate. But what kind of sound is he making? Because the mucus has, surrounded his organs, in the body at old age. What happens is, there's a lot of mucus formation happens in the body. And the only sound he can make is like ghora, ghora. He is not able to speak. He wants to speak. He can't speak. He sees the moment of death approaching. So this is like, as time is approaching, he is trying to speak, can't speak. All his senses are failing. And at that time, he sees the messengers of the Lord of Death, Yamraj, कि जो दूतस हैं, जो messengers हैं, जिनको हम यमदूता बोलते हैं, he sees them, because Yamraj says, bring me those people who don't chant. So again, when he sees them, he is terrified looking at their twisted faces, their horrible body with long hairs, and their, burning red coal like eyes, who are there with their noose, with the, with the ropes to grab him and take him to Yamlok. And seeing them, such a man, such a person, passes urine and stool in that state, is scared. Now it is this particular aspect that when someone is near death and they get this, they can see the Yamadutas around them who are ready to take them, there is an anxiety that even an old person shows. So this is called terminal anxiety. In medical world, it is known by the word terminal anxiety. And this is actually happening because they can see the Yamadutas are trying to catch them and they are trying to fight with this Yamadutas not to be caught in that rope. But what are doctors? They don't know. right? If the doctors don't know, what they do is they drug such patients. And then when you are drugged, can you fight? No, you can't fight. Whatever little energy they were fighting with is taken care of by these doctors who do not know. So these doctors, that's why these doctors who don't understand the spiritual knowledge, don't understand that Yamdutas are there who are trying to cause this terminal anxiety in the case of a patient. Rather, they drug the patient. Who are they helping? They are helping the Yamdutas. That's why such doctors who don't have spiritual knowledge are called brothers of, they are like the sakhas of Yamraj, because they are like serving Yamraj. They are actually against this living entity. And now you would say these Yamdutas are very bad beings who take these living entities. Now who are these Yamdutas? We should also understand that these are the Yamdutas who are actually forefathers, the Pitras. They have left, and then their descendants, when comes the time of Shraddh and proper time of their barsi jo hota hai na unke mrityu ke time ka, they are not performing the tarpan, right? Not making the offerings so that they get food when they are in Pitralok. They're waiting for their turn to meet Yamraj, to get the judgment of all their pious and impious activities, good deeds and bad deeds. ऐसे में वो जब वेट कर रहे हैं तो भूखे हैं, तो उसमें उनको वो आते हैं श्राद्ध के समय पे, और उस समय उनको खाना जो मिलता है उससे वो लोग सस्टेन करते हैं. लेकिन जिनके डिसेंडेंट्स ऐसा उनको तर्पण वगैरह करके ऑफरिंग नहीं करते हैं, तो उनका, बिकॉज दे आर हंग्री and they are coming and going in this hunger through this road, which is like the road is burning with red hot, and there's fire on all directions. So their body becomes twisted. They're given another subtle body, but they get twisted, the features get twisted. So they become so angry with this descendant, they said that such people should be punished. So they take to the service of Yamraj, and they becomes the Yamdutas, and they are given this assignment to go and get such descendants or other human beings who are not performing their right activities. So one should be very, very careful. And while as per Vedas, the tarpan is a ceremony that one should perform, a ritualistic ceremony, but when the devotees, they engage in the chanting of the holy name, automatically everything is taken care of. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Because devotees, they engage in the chanting of the holy name constantly. Minimum 16 rounds, Srila Prabhupada said, on special days, minimum 25 rounds. They constantly make an offering to the Lordship before eating. So again, when you offer it to the Lordship, Lord distributes it. So automatically the Pitras, the forefathers, they also get their share through these offerings. So it's not that 5 days in a year that they do it every day. So the devotees do it every day. So automatically the forefathers are very nicely taken care of. While when those who are not engaging devotional service and don't perform tarpan, of course their forefathers, they finally they become the servant of Yamraj, they become the Yamdutas, and they want to bring this, persons who have not taken to the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead under the instruction of who? Yamraj. Now the interesting thing is, Lord Kapil is telling all of this to Devahuti, and Devahuti, his mother, and this narration is this narration is done by Maitreya Muni to Vidurji, Mahatma Vidur. And Mahatma Vidur, who is he? He's Yamraj. Yamraj was cursed to become a Shudra, so he appeared as Vidur, Mahatma Vidur. And so he is hearing this. So again, it is very interesting that he is hearing. Now sometimes when we tell our servants to do something, we are busy in doing our business. We do not know what's going on the other side. So here, now, even Yamraj is hearing about what happens to the other kind of living entities. And he is also remembering that Lord, he is so powerful, and so his energy, the Maya, which has the external potency, which is less powerful than the internal potency, yet because the external potency is also serving the Lordship, right? जैसे किसी जेल का जो जेलर होता है ना, that is working under the president or prime minister of the nation or the chief minister of the state, whatever the government authority. So they are appointed by the government to do a specific job, and that's what Maya is doing. She is appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, to take care of this material world. And she's constantly testing every living entity on how much surrender the living entity has. She throws tribulation one after another, like waves in the ocean, hitting the living entity, so that the living entity, shows how much surrender do they have, or how much bewildered they get, right? It's very interesting. Now I've gave you the example of boat, right? The boats are going, so maybe you understand, I'm going to be split. Now which boat you lift your leg from and which boat you take shelter is also very important. Because tendency is, I do not know if Harinam will save me. So people, they usually jump to the boat on wealth side, right? Thinking that I will sustain myself, I will save myself. How can you save yourself? Because it is like time carrying, away the living entity to the moment of death. So at that terminal anxiety time, when they see these Yamadutas, these living entities who had been engaging in all kind of activities, they are passing stool and urine, and Yamadutas with their ropes, they catch the soul and the subtle body of these living entities, and they drag them. In 2 to 3 movements, 90,000 yojanas distance is passed. And the living entity is like, this is the road which is like very hot, and there is fire, on the forest fires on both sides of the road. Is constantly being touched by this forest fire, and on the way they are, bitten by the dogs and attacked by various kind of animals. Sometimes the living entity being dragged by the ropes of these Yamadutas, sometimes it falls unconscious, then it comes back to life. Now you would say, if it's only a few moments, how could that be? Because time is relative. What is few moment for us is a large moment. Again, Einstein explains it very nicely. The relativity factor of time, that it's like the time flies very fast when you are having a conversation. A young boy is having a conversation with a young girl, so the time is flying. While if you are sitting on a hot plate, किसी गरम red hot तवे पे आपको बैठा दिया जाए, every moment will seem like a year. So again, that's time is relative. So this is what has been identified, that even though it appears to be so short, the time is, it expands for the living entity who is in suffering. In suffering, every moment is very big, it's very hard to pass. So in this way, the living entity is dragged, and after, of course, they are in a long queue waiting to meet the Yamraj, and when they are present in front of Yamraj, then the Yamraj secretary, what is his secretary's name? Please share in the comments. His secretary, his name is Chitragupta. Gupta means all secret. Chitra means pictures. He has pictures of all your secrets, all secret activities that you were thinking. No one is watching. Chitragupta is taking records. He's making records of all those activities that you are engaged in. Say all sinful activities, pious as well as impious activities, because pious activities, for that you have to be sent to heavenly planets, and for impious activities to hellish planets. So in this way, one who is engaged in these kind of activities, they are sent to different kind of planets. So again, Kumbhaka, Tamishra or Andhatamishra, so these are like the 3 hellish planets that have been discussed in this particular chapter. And people who like to eat barbecue, their bodies get barbecued, right, in Tamishra. Under Tamishra is where people who are engaged in illicit sex, so they, are made to embrace a red hot body, iron red body. So they are made to embrace of the opposite sex. So their body, they suffer. For people who had been engaged in, various kind of eating non-vegetarian and disturbing other kind of living entities, so their body parts are taken out by the dogs and the vultures. They see themselves, their body is being eaten away, their stomach being split apart, and the entrails and everything has been eaten, and they fall unconscious. They come back to consciousness, so they suffer in this way. So these again, they get, temporary bodies so that they can experience this pain, right? And so they are suffering. People who are, they're sometimes they're boiled in oil. People who like to eat, deep fried non-vegetarians and other things just for sense gratification. Their bodies are boiled. So again, and they are some people who are, supposed to be going to the animal yoni. So if a determination is done that this person will become a cockroach, right, in the future, and has to spend so much duration as a cockroach. So they are thrown into the caves, into dark places, where they end up eating their own flesh because they are not getting anything. They want to sustain on something, so they are eating other people around them, and their consciousness becomes so dull. They are overcome, so that they come to the level of that yoni, right, of a cockroach, of a dog, of a cat, and then they are given that body, so that now they have to pass through the whole yonis. 8.4 million species of life are there. So wherever they are in that cycle, they pass through with different yonis, and after some time again get the rare human birth. So again, that's why this is Lord's causeless mercy. We are not qualified to get the human form of life, but Lord's causeless mercy is that He grants us this human form of life as another opportunity so that we can engage in devotional service. So again, this is where Lord Kapila is discussing that a living entity should understand the purpose of this life and should not waste this important life. But people who are bewildered, right, thinking that I want to be the master, I want to be the lord of this material nature, by serving others, because Jivera Suruphoya Krishna Nityadas, we are eternal servant of Lord Krishna. Right? Krishnera Tatastha Shakti. So we are the marginal potency of Lord Krishna. Beda Beda Prakash. So again, when we are engaged in the service of Lord Krishna, again we are engaged. So we are well aligned, in our role, in our constitutional position. But what is our nature? Our nature is that of a servant. But if we who are servant want to become master, that's a delusion. We can never become master, but this delusion of Maya, material energy, is that we have the desire to lord over material energy, and material energy engages us in such a manner that we think that we are the master. So by serving others, we are still servant. With a person with material consciousness trying to enjoy this material world, trying to lord over this material world, he falsely thinks that he is master. The head of a family thinks of himself as master of the family. And the leader of the nation thinks of himself as the master of the nation. Whereas actually, the living entity is just serving. And by serving Maya, this living entity is gradually going to hell, not knowing that this is a trap, this is delusion. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, a sane man should come to the point of Krishna consciousness and engage in the service of the Supreme Lord, applying his whole life, all of his wealth, his entire intelligence, and his full power of speaking. So, body, mind, and words. These are the three ways we can engage in various kind of activities. So, all activities should be engaged in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna, Anukulana Krishna Anushram, as Lord Krishna desires, not speculatively, but as being revealed in the bona fide scriptures, as being taught by the sadhus, the saintly people, as being instructed by the spiritual master. We should engage in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna. So that is an essential piece that we should come to. Now, with respect to this, when we hear about Ramayana and so many stories, sometimes we are so much interested and we look at it as entertainment, right? There is a story of the hunter Ratnakar, right? Ratnakar, and when he was a child, a Brahman's son, he got lost. And another hunter, he saw this child and he gave him shelter. Now the hunter only knew one business, to hunt the animals. So he taught that business to his son, right, to this boy, Ratnakar. So Ratnakar became a hunter. Now Ratnakar, what he would do is, he would only hurt, partially the animals. So the animals would be bleeding on the ground, suffering. So when Devashi Narada was passing through this forest, he saw that someone is half killing these animals, and the animals are suffering. So he says to this hunter, why are you doing this? He says, I like it. I feel enjoyment when I see them. So Devashi Narad could understand that this person is complete darkness. He said, you are making them suffer very much. If you want to kill them, just kill them instantly. Don't make them suffer. By the way, do you know that there is very hellish conditions you will have to suffer in? Just like we discussed in this particular chapter, Lord Kapila is revealing to Mother Devhuti that, a person with this consciousness in darkness is, will have to suffer hellish punishments. So here, Devashi Narad is revealing. Ratnakar says, wait a minute, I am doing this all for my family, for my wife, for my parents, and for my children. So of course they will share. Devashi Narad said, have you asked them, will they share? So he says, no, I haven't, but I'm sure. He says, why don't you go and ask them, will they share the hellish punishments with you for all the abominable things, all this killing that you are doing? सो हंटर रत्नाकर जो था शिकारी, वो अपने घर जाता है, अपने पेरेंट्स को बोलता है, सो आई एम बीइंग किलिंग ऑल दिस एनिमल्स, राइट, मैं इतने सारे पशु पक्षियों को मार रहा हूँ, तो इसके कारण जो मुझे पाप लगेगा, जो मुझे हेलिश कंडीशन में सफ़र करना पड़ेगा, यू विल शेयर विथ मी, राइट? They say, no, you are our son, so it is your responsibility. We took care of you, now you take care of us. Well, how you take care of us is your business. So you have to suffer for that. We are not responsible. He was shocked. Then he said, wait a minute, these are people, that took care of me. So maybe they would not share. So he goes to his wife. He says, my dear wife, I take care of you so nicely. I work so hard to take care of you. But I do all these abominable, sinful activities, right? Of killing all these animals. So will you share? She says, no, this is your responsibility, husband. As a husband, you have to take care of me. You have to take care of the household. I'm not going to be responsible how you take care of it. That is your responsibility. I will not be able to. I'm not part of this, how you take care of it. This is your responsibility. He was shocked. His wife, whom he loved very much, for whom, he took care of her so well, she is not going to be part of it. He asked his children. They also refuse. You are our dad. You have to take care of us. That's your responsibility. How you take care of us is your business. So we are not party to that. So he came back to Devashina. He said, this is what I am experiencing. Everyone at my home, they are not part of this. They will not share the sufferings that I have to go through for all this. And I have performed so much abominable activities. Devashinara at that time said, then you should atone for it, right? You have to repent for all those activities by engaging in the chanting of the holy name. So he said, chant Ram. Now the interesting thing is that hunter Ratnakar, जो शिकारी Ratnakar था, वो राम का नाम भी नहीं ले पा रहा था. He could not say Ram, 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 Ram. So at that time, Devashinara, he understood that this shikari, he had been doing all these killings and all that stuff. So इसको मरने मारने में लगा रहता है. तो बोलते हैं मरा बोल सकते हो. He said मरा बोल सकता हूँ. मरा, 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 मरा. So now interesting thing is, Devashi Narad gives him an instruction कि तुम बस यहाँ बैठे रहो टीले पे और मरा 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 बोलते रहो. He was not even speaking Ram. He was saying mara. But mara, if you remove the first ma and the last ra, it becomes Ram, 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 Ram. Right? So he was chanting. Sometimes people say, अरे वेदास में तो दिया हुआ है हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे. आप लोग हरे कृष्णा कैसे पहले बोला? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, he is the personality of Godhead, he is the supreme personality of Godhead. None other than Lord Krishna. Actually, he is Lord Krishna appearing in the mood of Radharani. So two in one. He is, Kripa Sindhu. It's the ocean of mercy. So he is telling us how to engage in the chanting of the holy name. And he gave this mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this is, why we chant the holy name. जब वो मरा मरा करके he can pass over, we are following the instructions of the Lordship. And so we will definitely become fearless because we have shelter. Now, some interesting aspects, two important aspects I want to share. First one is, one is Srila Prabhupada. He was, after his Srimad Bhagavatam class, he would ask people to ask him questions. So there was a devotee, he was trying to, go in an affluent area of the town to, preach. And he says that I went to this man and he says that he's happy. He doesn't need to take to Krishna consciousness. What did Srila Prabhupada said? because sometimes people have this notion that we are happy. Why should we take to the shelter of, why should we serve? Why should we become servant? We are master of our nation. We are master of our world. We are master of this estate. We are master. We are enjoying. So Srila Prabhupada's simple example was, he is a madman. Such a person who does not see the suffering around them. For them, the happiness is relief from distress. Such person who sees sparks in the dark and thinks that this is very nice, is a madman. How can you help a madman? The madman needs proper treatment, and Maya is the perfect treatment for such a man. We should not try to, again, I'm paraphrasing now onward. Srila Prabhupada's response was, he's a madman, and everyone just laughed. That's an important aspect. Now we all know how Ratnakar, by constantly calling out the name of the Lordship, he became so purified that he was entrusted to write Ramayana, and he's glorified as Valmiki Rishi. And of course, in his next birth, he's glorified as Tulsidas. Now that's another story, how he became Tulsidas. Right? Sometimes there is conflict even between devotees that occur. So again, in this material world, what to talk about? Conflicts sometimes happen even in the spiritual world, right? Like the Chatur Kumaras versus the two doorkeepers. Again, conflict is always there. But the interesting thing is, when it is dovetailed, we may be doing different activities, but if the activities are dovetailed to please Lord Shri Krishna, there is no loss. Neha bikram nashasti prativayo na vidyate swalpamasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Even if little, devotional service is performed, it can save us from the greatest danger in our life. That is a very important lesson that we should take. And another aspect was, again, so we should all engage in the service of the Supreme Lord with all our abilities. And it is advised, it is judicious that we need to give up the family attachment, because that attachment should be dovetailed towards Lord Shri Krishna. So we should, it's not that we walk out of the family, but rather we should engage all our family members in serving Lord Shri Krishna. And sometimes devotees ask that, Prabhu, we have all these family members who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. You can still engage them. You can engage them in prasadam seva, right? So prasad is mercy. Seva is service. So you can give them the mercy of the Lordship and engage them in doing this seva by, first prepare nice food stuff, offer it to Lord Shri Radha Krishna, the Lordships, and then share it with the family members, and they would engage in prasadam seva and they will relish it, and their material body will be, fully satisfied, as well as the spiritual body, the living entities they will also be satisfied. So that is an important aspect that we should remember. So again, that way, when we engage in devotional service, we don't have to, go through the suffering as in the case of Yamadutas pulling living entity in few moments, 2 to 3 moments, passing through 99,000 yojanas, that are a huge distance, to go and hear the judgment. Rather, we can purify our existence and go back home, back to Godhead, instead of suffering in this world. And for that, the simple process is by calling out to the Lordship in a prayerful mood, with gratitude, in a humble mood, with tolerant mood, ready to give all respect to others, not expecting any respects, we should call out, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in this chapter today, Lord Kapil, he shared as what happens to one who does not engage in bhakti before death and comes, right, before the death comes, and what is the timely solution? That we should engage in devotional service now itself. We should take to the chanting of the holy name. We should engage in the 9th process of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. And 10th and 11th are reading and writing, about the name, form, activities, pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna. So that is an essential principle that we should always remember. Smartavya satatam Vishnu vismartavya na jatu chet sarve vidhi nishedasur etayoreva kinkara. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. All other rules and regulations are subservient to these two principles. So we should engage in devotional service, we should take to bhakti and not suffer, not be like a madman or a mad woman or a mad person. Right? So this is an important lesson that we share today in this chapter. Hare Krishna.
So Prabhuji, there are some questions.
Yes, please go ahead. Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavad ki jai, Ananta Kori Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. There are some questions, we'll answer the questions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, dear viewers. Jiva Prabhuji, you have kindly given us all so much to think about, so much to learn from the teachings, especially from this chapter. Hopefully, we can apply these teachings, take to devotional service, and make our life perfect so that we don't suffer at the last moment. So, Prabhuji, there are some questions.
Yes, please.
So one, I think there are two questions by, let me see, if I have them, then I can read them to you, Prabhuji. Sandeep Kalwar Prabhuji posted first question. Prabhuji, I have one question and I hope you would answer my query. The question is like this: what is the best way to understand and implement the knowledge and education of Bhagavad Gita, which is directly spoken by Lord Krishna himself? And Prabhuji, इनका मैं second question भी बता देती हूँ, so that you can determine if you can address them together. Prabhuji, what is the difference between mudhas and samudhas? And how one cannot be caught by Maya Devi and trains and fixed mind in Krishna consciousness? तो प्रभु जी, इनका जो क्वेश्चन है ना, जो लेसन्स हैं फ्रॉम भगवद गीता, तो उसको हम कैसे समझें कि वो भगवान कृष्ण ने स्वयं कहे हैं, उनका ये रेफरेंस चाहते हैं. और दूसरी बात ये जानना चाहते हैं कि हम माया देवी से कैसे प्रोटेक्ट कर सकते हैं और अपना माइंड कृष्णा कॉन्शियसनेस में कैसे फिक्स कर सकते हैं. लेट मी पुट ऑन द माइक्रोफोन.
Hare Krishna. So, very important question. Sandeep ji ने पूछा है ये question कि हम what is the best way that we can take to the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, जो Lord Krishna ने जिस तरह से रिवील करी है. And Lord Krishna इसमें अपना फाइनल इंस्ट्रक्शन में वो पूरा सिंपली तरीके से बताते हैं. सर्वधर्मां परित्यज्य माम एकम शरणं व्रज अहम त्वाम सर्व पापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः. So, sarvadhamma pratyaja, give up all varieties of religion. So, what varieties of religion means? All speculative ways, thinking of Gyan Yoga, Karma Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, these things. But take to the devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, take to that, which is surrendering at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna and serving Him. So, again, just surrendering means when somebody surrenders, then they do things in anukul, as favorable manner. Right? So we should accept everything that's favorable to our devotional service and reject everything that is unfavorable to our devotional service. So again, anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya vajanam rakshishyati iti vishwaso gopatitve varnam tatha atmanikshepa karpane shadvida sharanagati. Surrender ki 6 limbs hote hain. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes this very nicely, that one should accept anukulyasya sankalpa, accept things favorable for devotional service, pratikulyasya varjanam, and reject things that are unfavorable to devotional service, and atmanikshepa karpaneya. So again, accepting that Lord will provide protections and take to the goptitva varnam tata, and take to the guardianship of Lord Shri Krishna, constantly relying on Lord Shri Krishna for one's sustenance. And Atmanikshepa Karpanaya means again surrendering everything. Atmanikshepa means surrendering everything in service of Lord Shri Krishna. So all activities that we perform with body, mind and words. So all these 3 elements are engaged in serving the Lordship. Karpane in a humble mood. So these 6 limbs are essential in surrender. So this is how Sharanagati, right? Sometimes people refer to as God speed as well, that you have great speed, because then we are on our spiritual platform and we can easily take. Now Lord Krishna also prior to this verse gives the instruction man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. So how do you perform? So he is basically saying man mana bhava, always think of me, mad bhakto, become my devotee, madhyaji, worship me, mam namaskuru, pay obeisances to me. Now it's very interesting that he is starting from the top level down the 4 steps, right? So namaskar you can do in a few seconds, Hare Krishna, that's namaskar, mam namaskuru. So we can just take few seconds and we can do namaskar. Like in madhyaji, now this takes minutes, right, to worship the Lordship. So when we engage in worship, that's the next stage. Just paying obeisances is an early stage, that at least we have started something. But then when we engage in deity worship, when we are even standing in the temple where the deity worship is going on and not engaging in any gossip, but focusing on the worship of the Lordship and singing the glories, that is also worship, right? So we are part of that worship that's going on. So we are, Madhyaji. And then Mad Bhakto, become my devotee. So becoming devoted means every day we should be engaged in serving the Lordship, preparing bhoga, dressing the Lordship, giving him bath, nicely taking care of him, keeping the temple clean. So this is Mad Bhakto. So engaging in 4 regulative principles, minimum 16 rounds. And then when we engage in this manner, finally we come to the first one, which is the most important one. Man mana bhava, always think of it, so that we can constantly think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just by following these 4 steps is another way. In 12th chapter, the topic of 12th chapter in Bhagavad Gita is devotional service. There are verses from 8 to 12, they actually talk about the ladder within bhakti, within devotional service. You can also look at that. Similar thing what I have described to you from the 65th verse of the 18th chapter in Bhagavad Gita is elaborated there. Mayyeva manadho swamayi buddhim niveshya nivasishyasi mayyeva tadhuam na samshayaha. There also Lord Krishna is saying that always think of me. Atha chittam samadhatam na shaknoshi mayi sthiram abhyasa yogena tato mamichhatum dhananjaya. But if you cannot always think of me, then engage in abhyasa yoga. Engage in devotional service, the 4 regulative principles, minimum 16 rounds, and as a devotee constantly engage in serving me. Ata chittam samadhatum nashak nashimajistam. And then atayava. So again, he continues to come down through the ladder, that you have to do this. If you can't do this, then you do this. If you can't do this, then you serve, phalakarma tyagam. Again, so again, by giving some remunerations, again, some of the fruits that we have received from our labor, we offer it to the Lordship. Even that is sarva karma phalatyagam. So that is also very important. And if you can't even do, sheo hi jnanam abhyasas jnana dhyanam visheshyate dhyanat karma phalatyagas taga chantir anantaram. So sheo hi jnanam abhyasad. So again, from activities, from they are better is to gain knowledge, and then giving one's fruit of one's labor is even better. So again, now in the last 12th verse, he is telling in the reverse order that how that is going on. So again, we have to, when we follow these steps, 4 steps is easier than following the 8 steps, right? So you can just look at those 4 steps I explained, and you can take easily to the instructions of Lord Shri Krishna and engage in bhakti. All the best to your efforts. Hare Krishna. Very nice question. What was the second question? I kind of partially answered that question also in here, but
okay, so
yes.
First question, how can apply message from Bhagavad Gita?
Yes.
Second is, what is how can one not be caught by Maya Devi and train and fix the mind in Krishna consciousness?
Hare Krishna. So think of your police department, right? They are maintaining law and order, and Maya Devi is the jailer of the jail, right?
Can you repeat the question?
So, okay. So how can one not be caught by Maya, right? And train and fix themselves in devotional service. संदीप कलवर प्रभु जी का एक प्रश्न है. So when you don't want to be caught by the policeman, what do? You just simply follow the rules and regulations. You be a model citizen, and you follow and obey the law. So that's what the law is. Jivera Sarup Hoya Krishna Nityadas. our eternal constitutional position is as eternal servant of Lord Shri Krishna. So that is our constitution, that's our स्वभाव. मिर्ची का स्वभाव है वो तीखी होती है, शक्कर का स्वभाव है वो मीठी होती है, नमक का स्वभाव है वो नमकीन होता है, राइट. सो हमारा स्वभाव क्या है? वी आर एटर्नल सर्वेंट ऑफ लॉर्ड श्री कृष्ण. सो अगर हम लॉर्ड कृष्ण को हटाते हैं तो हम एटर्नल सर्वेंट तब भी रहते हैं. So why to serve Maya? Because if we are not serving Lord Shri Krishna, that means we are not following rules and regulations. And when a person who's unlawful, they are caught by the policemen, right? And they are put in jail. And this material world is called Durg. It's like a jail. And who's the jailer of this jail? Durga, Maya, Maya Devi, the consort of Lord Shiva. So she is the jailer. And she is making sure that we become lawful, law-abiding citizens. And very simple process is that we take shelter of Lord Shri Krishna. When we take shelter of Lord Shri Krishna, then of course, if we are law-abiding citizens, if someone wants to harm, the same policemen who are putting people in jail will come to protect us. So even Maya is ready to serve the devotees who are sometimes being disturbed by demons. So again, that is a greater shelter. So Mayam eva tarantite. So whoever takes shelter of Lord Shri Krishna can easily cross over this ocean of nations. So simple way of getting out of the clutches of Maya is to take shelter of Lord Shri Krishna. Hopefully this answers. And of course we also covered this verse. Devi he Shang Gudamai Mama Maya Duratyaya Mame Vye Prapadyante Maya Metam Tarantite. And such people who take shelter of Lord Shri Krishna, engaging 24/7 in serving Lord Shri Krishna, they are also referred to as Mahatma by Lord Shri Krishna. Mahatmanas tu mam partha devim prakritim ashrayaha. So again, the great souls who have taken shelter of Lord Shri Krishna, they come under the shelter of Yog Maya, Lord's internal potency. They take shelter of Radharani. So under Radharani's protection, she is his internal potency, which is much more powerful than the external potency. So we are the marginal potency. तट होता है ना नदी का तट, या तो वो पानी के अंदर रहेगा या वो ऊपर रहेगा, वो जो slope होता है. So we living entities have to take shelter of one or the other, because on our own we are just spiritual spark, but we get the spiritual body when we take shelter of Radharani, Lord's Yogamaya, and when we take shelter of Mahamaya, then we get material bodies. And material bodies, we can only exist in material world. Just like a fish can only survive in water. If you bring the fish on land, no matter how much, to save from sunlight, you give it an umbrella, different kind of jewels, it will never be satisfied. It wants to get in water. So again, type of body defines the type of habitat. So, and in material world, there is suffering and impermanentness, impermanent nature of this material world. And spiritual world, there is constant bliss. Every step is a dance, every word is a song, and everyone is serving Lord Shri Krishna with love, with attraction, with affection, with attention, and complete absorption. Hare Krishna. Hopefully this answers your question.
हरे कृष्णा. So संदीप कलवर जी, आपके क्वेश्चंस प्रभु जी ने एड्रेस किए हैं. So let us know if you have further question. So Prabhuji, we have 2-3 more questions. Do we have some time? Okay. So next question is by Pooja Mehta ji. What happened to the person who takes non-vegetarian food also and chant also? So Pooja ji जानना चाहती हैं कि लोग अगर रेगुलेटिव प्रिंसिपल्स फॉलो नहीं कर पाते हैं और चैंटिंग शुरू कर देते हैं, तो क्या उससे भी कुछ प्योरिफिकेशन और बेनिफिट है?
Hare Krishna. There are many scriptures that describe the condition. If a person has become a very strong bhakta and he is taken to hellish condition, first of all, they are able to give up the attraction towards meat. But even an example is given where a bhakta is taken, again I'll have to find exact source, but this bhakta is taken to a hellish condition, and just because he was attracted to meat eating and so forth, so his body is placed in a boiling oil pot. So when he's placed, he had become such a strong bhakta, he was chanting the holy name, and so the burning oil did not affect him because he was chanting the holy name, he was meditating Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. So the potency of the holy name was so powerful that even though he was given the punishment, he was, just like Prahlad Maharaj, he was going through so many tribulations, but nothing was able to harm him. So this devotee was going through all the hellish conditions, but he was completely unattached to all of these factors, because he was constantly not thinking, I am this body. He was giving this body, and the body was going through all this, was giving the punishment. But his attachment to the holy name was so strong that he would not feel the pain, the suffering that comes from those punishments. Hare Krishna, hopefully this answers your question.
कृष्णा पूजा जी, so chanting सभी को करनी चाहिए. By chanting can be done by anyone in any state, और इवेंचुअली रिकमेंडेशन है हमें 4 रेगुलेटिव प्रिंसिपल्स भी फॉलो करने हैं ताकि हम सिंफुल एक्टिविटीज से अपने आप को प्रिवेंट कर सकें, और आफ्टर दिस लाइफ वी आर नॉट थ्रोन टू द हेलिश प्लैनेट्स. प्रभु जी ने एग्जाम्पल भी दिया. सो प्रभु जी, नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन जो है दैट इज़ बाय निधि गुप्ता जी, और उनका क्वेश्चन है, व्हेन वी गेट challenges in our bhakti life which makes us very sad, is Krishna putting us in testing times? तो ये जानना चाहती हैं कि भगवान अगर परीक्षाएं लेते हैं तो वो किस तरह से हो सकती हैं पॉसिबली, और हम किसी कारण से उदास हो जाते हैं, निराश हो जाते हैं, तो वो भगवान की तरफ से परीक्षा होती है क्या, और हमें क्या करना चाहिए?
So we should take shelter of sadhu sangha, we should take shelter of the lordship, and we are never alone. Sometimes this sadness comes, or this kind of feelings comes because we think we are this body. We are thinking that we are to be, everything around us have to be externally right. No, internally happiness is inside, right? Happiness is in serving. Happiness is in taking to devotional service. We should take to devotional service. We should actually seek strongly the shelter of Lord Shri Krishna. Even material energy, Maya, she wants to make sure that only a good devotee, a pure devotee escapes her. Right? So she throws tribulations, she tests us. Just like when we are in school, right? We always study and we just look at it, oh, this everyone is doing this. But what happens? We are studying a subject, and at the end, we have to pass through an exam. For that exam, we may be cramming at the last moment. But this life, we should start cramming now, because we don't know when death is arriving. So we should be ready at every moment for our final exam that is going to occur, when death will arrive. So again, from now itself, we should be focusing, and yes, many kind of tribulations will be thrown our way. Even the boat could be rocking, right? Sometimes when you're sitting in a boat and the waves are hitting the boat, and if the boat is not well aligned, it's the waves may be hitting and causing the boat to rock. So similarly, we have this human body, which is also a perfect boat, and if we are engaged in our travel towards, back home, back to Godhead, and there may be waves hitting us, the different circumstances externally, but remember that true knowledge, true, happiness is inside in serving Lord Shri Krishna by engaging in devotional service. So we should focus on that, and we should chant with greater attention, with greater enthusiasm. Utsahan nishayadhara tat karma pravartana sangatyaga satovate sadbir bhakti prasiddhati. So we should improve our devotional service. हमें भक्ति में और लीन होना चाहिए, और प्रज्वलता पूर्वक और उज्जवल भाव से भक्ति में लगना चाहिए. Hare Krishna, hopefully this answers your question, because this is just Maya testing us. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा. थैंक यू प्रभु जी. सो निधि जी, प्रभु जी ने हमें इसका रेस्पॉन्स दिया कि यस, टेस्टिंग फेजेस होते हैं. बेसिकली हमारा डिटर्मिनेशन, एंथुसियाज्म, हमारी श्रद्धा का टेस्ट होता है ये, और ये कई तरीक़ों से हमारी लाइफ में चैलेंजेस और टेस्ट आ सकते हैं. और क्योंकि हम अगर इस बॉडी से मिस आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं, जैसा कि प्रभु जी ने एक्सप्लेन किया, अगर हम इस बॉडी से मिस आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं तो मिजरीज बहुत तरीक़ों से आ सकती है, लेकिन उसका सॉल्यूशन भी प्रभु जी ने बहुत ब्यूटीफुली हमें गाइड कर दिया है. सो प्रभु जी, देयर इज़ वन मोर क्वेश्चन. करुणा सिंधु प्रभु जी का है, हाउ कैन वी इंक्रीज आवर डिटर्मिनेशन एंड इंटरेस्ट इन डिवोशनल सर्विस और प्रभु जी काफ़ी सारे डिवोटीज़ ने बहुत लाइक किया है आज का सेशन। सभी के काफ़ी सारे कमेंट्स हैं जो कि आप क्लास के बाद रिव्यू करते हैं। करुणा सिंधु प्रभु जी ने कहा है, थैंक यू प्रभु जी, दिस इज़ ब्यूटीफुल क्लास विद लेसन्स। तो ये जानना चाहते हैं अपना डिटर्मिनेशन और इंटरेस्ट भक्ति में हम कैसे इंक्रीज कर सकते हैं, बेटर कर सकते हैं। हरि बोल।
हरे कृष्णा। साधु संगा सर्व शास्त्र कया, लव मात्र साधु संगा सर्व सिद्धि हया. So devotee association is paramount. It is very important for us to constantly seek devotional, devotee association so that we get inspiration, right? When you want to go for mountaineering, then you associate with people who are, mountaineers, and they are doing the same activity. So we have to understand army men, they work with other army men because that's the environment they want to be in. So when we are engaged in devotion, devotional service, भक्ति में जब लगना चाहते हैं तो हम भक्तों का साथ चाहिए हमें. Congregation chanting, इसलिए that is the Yug Dharma, right? So it's not chanting is Yug Dharma, congregational chanting is Yug Dharma. So it is Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. So we should all take to the congregation chanting. We should look for the congregation of devotees and associate with that congregation of devotees, and that way we should also bring this connection. Now one of the things, Karna Sindhu Prabhu, you have expressed and reminded me is this age, the current generation of millennials, they are seeking instant sense gratification. Of course, we know that millennials have now entered 30s in the, they are, some of them are even in mid 30s or so. So they are seeking instant gratification, and so we, instead of seeking instant gratification, we should look for meaningful relationships, not like hello hi here and hello hi there. We on the surface nahi. We should be deep. When Srila Prabhupada, he was walking with the devotees and he pointed to Pacific Ocean. Pacific, हम लोग हिंदी में उसको क्या बोलते हैं? प्रशांत महासागर. वो शांत है, pacified है on the surface. Srila Prabhupada said, why is Pacific Ocean so quiet most of the time? The devotees, they could answer. They asked. Srila Prabhupada said, because it is deep. So to be able to become so grave, such devoted, to become pure devotee, we have to go deeper. We have to build deep relationships with other devotees. We have to go deeper in our spiritual consciousness. We have to build that depth, and that can come starting with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And this determination and enthusiasm requires an environment that we can create around us of the devotees, constant hearing and chanting of the holy name, having loving relationships. ऐसी बाणी बोलिए मन का पाक होए, औरन को शीतल करे आप हु शीतल होए. So we have to engage in all positivity and reject all negativity, right? Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya vajanam. We have to accept everything that's favorable for our devotion service and reject everything that's unfavorable. We talked about the 6 limbs, but these first two limbs are very important because they open the gate for all other, shelter for determination, how we can improve our determination and how we can be constantly enthusiastic in the chanting of the holy name, in our devotional service, in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna and pleasing all the world, and become the best social worker for all around us. Hare Krishna. Hopefully this answers your question.
हरे कृष्णा. थैंक यू प्रभु जी. सो इम्पॉर्टेंट लेसन्स टुडे, किस तरह से हम अपना डिटर्मिनेशन और एंथुजियाज्म ना केवल कायम रख सकते हैं, उसे बढ़ा भी सकते हैं साधु संगा में, बाई एंगेजिंग इन डिवोशनल एक्टिविटीज़. तो प्रभु जी, गीता माता जी कह रही हैं, ब्यूटीफुल एनालॉजी विद इन डेप्थ एंड क्वाइट नेचर ऑफ पैसिफिक ओशन. चित्रा माता जी का क्वेश्चन है रिगार्डिंग हरे कृष्णा. प्रभु जी, कैन यू एक्सप्लेन कर्म योग, ज्ञान योग इन शॉर्ट इफ पॉसिबल? सो प्रभु जी, आई नो ये काफ़ी डिटेल में हम भागवत गीता स्टडी में कवर कर चुके हैं पहले भी और फिर भी करेंगे. डू यू थिंक वी हैव सम टाइम टू एड्रेस दिस ब्रीफली?
Yes.
ठीक है.
So again,
हरे कृष्णा. लेट मी
Hare
पुट ऑन
Krishna.
माइक्रोफोन. कर्म योग एंड
Yes. So, action, Krishna consciousness, chapter 5, Karma Yoga, also chapter 3. Lord Krishna gives extensive description, but basically a Karma Yoga is one. Yoga means connection with the Supreme Lord, right? And Karma is like by doing activities. So again, one engages their senses in doing activities, mind, body and senses, in doing activities, and whatever is received as the fruits of those labor, they offer that to the Lordship. That is true Karma Yoga. Now, sometimes people think that, karmane vadikaraste ma phaleshu kalachana. They look at the first phrase only of this verse. There's karmane vadikaraste, you have the right to perform your duties. But they reject the second part, ma phaleshu kalachana, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your labor. So people want to enjoy the fruits. That's not karma yogi, that's actually karmi, right? That's a fruitive worker. So the big difference is, don't be a fruitive worker, but engage everything in Lord Krishna's service. Then accept whatever prasad you get, and for the sustenance of the body. So no over endeavor, no overeating, right? And no gossip. Like again, atyahara prayasasya prajalpa niyamagraha janasangasya lalyamcha sadbir bhakti vinashyati. So again, Karma Yogi has to be very careful not to do atyahara, not to do over endeavor prayas, and janasangasya, and having company of materialistic men who are interested in money, women, and just enjoyment in the bodily level, and prajalpa, avoid prajalpa and gossip. Yeah. So these things one should avoid, and a Karma Yogi is one who is constantly connecting in activities to please Lord Krishna. So they may be doing activities based on their influence of the three modes of material nature, right? Mode of goodness, passion and ignorance. And whatever they are getting, they are offering it to the Lordship and then accepting whatever is there. So again, no over endeavor means they focus on sustaining themselves while engaging in devotional service. So again, that's Buddhi Yoga. Uska bhi thoda reference diya hai aakhri mein. So a bhakta is automatically a Karma Yogi because everything that they do are engaged in devotional service. Now Jnani is like saying that, okay, I do all these fruitive activities, but then I understand that this is the stage of a donkey, right? I don't want to live a life of a donkey. Not like a mudha. There was a question on some mudha. He's a complete fool, like a madman. So again, I don't want to live like that. So what do? I don't want to engage in activity. So the Jnani is engaged in knowledge, but his knowledge is not on the mental. So Karma Yogi is on the mental speculative platform because he doesn't have the knowledge behind it. A Jnani goes for knowledge and wants to avoid karma, right? So again, not being covered by fruitive activities, but at the same time he's not engaging in it. He's saying akarma means no activity. That's the misunderstanding. And he is going after the flowery language of Vedas. And he is thinking, if I can merge into Brahman, then I can become God. So that's an offense. That's an offensive way of thinking. That is pratikul, right? So he's not surrendering to the lotus feet. Rather, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says that a Mayavadi, impersonalist is thinking as a Jnana Yogi. So he's misunderstanding what Jnana Yoga actually is. And so, materialist or Mayavadi is the word being referred here, wants to become God. And that's not true aspect. Rather, we should engage in serving the Lordship. So a true Jnana Yogi is one, not a Jnana Yogi who's bewildered, not a Mayavadi, but one who is Jnani, is engaged in knowledge to understand that actually all knowledge is telling me to engage in serving, realizing spiritual consciousness, Jivera Surupoya Krishna Nityadas. So a bhakta is automatically Jnana Yogi. So just like, a big water body serves the purpose of smaller water bodies, a bhakta is automatically a Jnana Yogi, a Karma Yogi and a Ashtanga Yogi because they're constantly engaged and automatically they're engaged in their mind, body and words. So the body is constantly taking care of serving Lord Shri Krishna, so it's also keeping healthy. And devotees, they also do pranayama and all that, but understand the goal of maintaining a healthy body, because even this body is given to us as a gift. It's a prasad, right? So we should take care of the body so that we can serve the Lordship. So automatically they're constantly, and what is the top level of Ashtanga Yogi? Is Samadhi. So am I actually giving you more answer than what you're looking for? Is Samadhi. So a devotee is constantly in Samadhi, right? Man manabhav, always think of me. So that is the stage we want to come to. Hare Krishna, hopefully this answers your question.
हरे कृष्णा. सो चित्रा जी, प्रभु जी ने आपको डिटेल में बताया एक्चुअली, कर्म योग, ज्ञान योग, एंड इफ़ यू लाइक प्लीज़ ज्वाइन आवर भागवत गीता क्लासेस विच विल बी रिज्यूमिंग सून, एंड उसमें और भी डिटेल में इसे डिस्कस करेंगे, जिसमें श्री कृष्ण भगवान जी टीचिंग्स दे रहे हैं अर्जुन को, एंड इट इज़ एक्चुअली वेरी प्रैक्टिकल वे we can understand how we can dovetail everything in our life to achieve the topmost perfection in yoga, bhakti yoga. So Prabhuji, at this time we do not have any more questions, but Prabhuji, कुछ devotees ने बहुत beautiful shares किए हैं that they feel nice. You gave this class today and also answered the questions which gives them lot of insight. Geeta Mata ji का एक question है प्रभु जी, do we have some time? Can we say that a Jnani is one who applies what is learned from Bhagavad Gita and one who strives to dedicate their human life to connect with Bhagwan and thus be delivered from cycle of life and death? I think she means birth and death. So can we say that a Jnani is one who applies what is learned from Bhagavad Gita?
So again,
let me put on microphone.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
One second. Yes.
Yoga means connection, right? A yogi is one who's connection to the Lordship. There are various processes as one is connected to the Lordship. So yes, we can use all our knowledge in connecting with the Lordship, in serving Him very nicely. Anukulena Krishna Anushilinam. So yes, you can say a Jnani is one who applies the knowledge, right? So applying the knowledge is part of the Jnana Yoga. Realizations that comes from the knowledge is Bhakti Yoga. So it's like, you got the recipe, and now based on that recipe, you are cooking something, right? And you cook that item. So that is, application of Jnana in connection with the Lord Shri Krishna. And when you have cooked something, you offer it as a bhoga, that's a connection. And then afterwards it becomes prasad, then you take it, and now you have become a bhakta. So now you come to the level of bhakti yogi. So again, a bhakta or bhakti yogi is, is above all this. Bhakti does not rely on karma, jnana and ashtanga. Rather, all these other processes rely on bhakti. They have to come to the level of bhakta, right? Bhakti yogi, to be able to attain, their path back to Godhead. So that is correct, and please continue to engage in devotional service and applying all knowledge in serving Lord Shri Krishna. Hare Krishna. Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavad ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.